Donald Trump, the 45th President of the United States, and now the Republican nominee to become the 47th President of the United States, going up against President Joe Biden in November, has one more question left to answer, and that is, who will be his vice presidential nominee? The question of who President Trump's vice president will be has been one that has gained a lot of media attention in the last few days. A lot of names have been thrown around for who President Trump's VP could be. Doug Burgum, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, and many more have been listed. So I decided to make my own personal top 10 list of people I believe are the top 10 choices to be President Trump's VP. This is my list. These are the names I came up with, and the order I put them in is my own personal rankings. Coming in at number 10, I have Senator Joni Ernst, a Republican from Iowa. Joni Ernst, as I mentioned, senator from Iowa, was elected back in 2014 when Iowa was still considered to be a very important toss-up state. Now, it is more of a state that could be a toss-up state, but has certainly leaned in the Republican direction, voting for President Trump in 2016 and 2020. That being said, I still feel it is important to mention, seeing as Iowa has a history of importance in the political world with the First in the Nation caucus and the prevalence it used to have as a swing state. Joni Ernst, being a woman, could also be someone that could look to help President Trump with winning over women voters and more moderate voters in a general election. Those are two of the pros I have for Senator Ernst. A few cons I have for her. One is there's been no media attention or buzz at all for her being a vice presidential pick for President Trump. So much so that President Trump, to the best of my knowledge, has not mentioned her at any of his rallies that he does. So I think Joni Ernst being his VP is very much a long shot, but still someone I think would be a qualified candidate and someone worth mentioning. Coming in at number 9, I have Tom Cotton, a Republican from Arkansas. Tom Cotton has served as senator from Arkansas since 2014 as well, similar to Joni Ernst. He was a veteran of the U.S. Army, I believe, and I think Tom Cotton would be someone who is a very solid choice to be a vice president. He doesn't add too much uniqueness, I would say, to the table in terms of one area of strength where he could really get a lot of voters or a lot of support. I think he'd just be an overall very sound and solid choice to be vice president. Wouldn't cause any controversy, wouldn't have any major gaffes or anything. Someone who'd be a very solid choice. A few of his cons, though, is Arkansas is not a competitive state at the presidential level. President Trump will have no problem winning it. And as I mentioned, one con that he has is that he doesn't really attract any new voters that President Trump will not already be able to win. So Tom Cotton is someone that could be a solid choice, but not someone is highly expected to be chosen as VP. Now, coming in at number 8, we have a very interesting choice, in my opinion, in Sarah Huckabee Sanders, a Republican from Arkansas. Sarah Huckabee Sanders was actually President Trump's first press secretary when he became president back in 2017. She is now the governor from Arkansas, getting elected in 2022. And similar to Joni Ernst, she could be very crucial in helping Trump trying to win over women voters. My biggest con with Sarah Huckabee Sanders, because I do think she would be a very good choice to be President Trump's vice president, but she was just elected in 2022, so there's a bit of a question of how much experience she has, seeing she's only been governor for a little under 2 years now. So I think she'd actually be a perfect vice presidential candidate, but I think more for 2028 when she has a little bit more experience being a governor and being in not being in politics because she had that experience in the White House, but elected politics as governor. So I think she could be a potential dark horse candidate for President Trump, but definitely someone I would keep an eye out for 2028. I just feel like 2024 is a little too soon for Sarah Huckabee Sanders, but I would not be shocked one bit if she was chosen as President Trump's vice president. Number 7, we have Byron Donalds from the state of Florida. Byron Donalds is a really interesting potential pick, in my opinion, because he is someone that is definitely a rising star in the Republican Party in just the short time that he's been in the House of Representatives, As I mentioned, he's from the state of Florida, same home state as Donald Trump, a state that is absolutely crucial for Republicans trying to win the White House. And he, I think, definitely offers a lot of appeal of a strategy that the Trump campaign has been trying to do, which is more outreach to black voters and trying to get a higher percentage of the black vote than Republicans of the past, and President Trump believing that could be crucial to him winning the election. The only problem with Representative Donald is that representatives don't have the best history of getting elected or chosen as VP, because usually they don't have high name recognition, and I'm afraid Donald's may be very similar to that, as he is someone I think would be definitely in great shape for 2028, especially if he can take that jump to maybe running for governor or running for senator in the next 4 years or so, where he can get maybe a little bit higher name ID. But he is certainly someone to watch, in my opinion, for 2028, but I feel like there are a little bit more experienced and qualified candidates for 2024 that I don't think Donald's will be able to get. Another issue with Donald's is that he and President Trump, as I mentioned, are both from Florida, and there's a legal law that says that the president and vice president cannot be from the same state. I believe it's not actually been tried before, because I don't think there's ever been a president and vice president from the same state, so I'm not sure how that would go, but I don't think President Trump would want to have another legal issue on his hands, so I think he may avoid picking Donald's for that reason. And now going into number 6, I have Representative from New York, Elise Stefanik. Right out of the way, I think for a similar reason, I'm not choosing her for VP because, again, I don't think representatives would usually get chosen for VP. That being said, she is a extremely vocal ally of President Trump, and in the state of New York, where it's hard for a Republican to get elected governor or senator, so representative may be the highest office she can get in her home state. And as I mentioned, she's been a very vocal and prominent Trump ally in Congress. She initially won her seat as a moderate and had to win over a lot of women voters and suburban voters to do so, something that if she were Trump's VP, she would certainly try to add to the ticket. And just a few cons, again, I mentioned representatives don't usually get chosen for VP. And the House of Representatives in the 2024 election is likely going to be very, very close. And if the Republicans hold the majority, it may only be by a few seats or so. So her being in Congress may be very, very important. And she may actually be more beneficial for President Trump being in Congress and being one of the few close votes on important bills to his agenda. So I think she may actually stay in Congress due to that importance of having that majority. So that was Elise Stefanik at number 6, Byron Donalds at number 7. Now as we move into my top 5 for the vice president. At number 5, I have J.D. Vance, senator from Ohio. He is someone that I think is very much in lockstep with President Trump on many key issues. Vance getting endorsed by President Trump almost very surprisingly back in the 2022 campaign. And Vance, being a very vocal ally of President Trump, certainly helps him in his chances to become vice president. Ohio, of course, having a lot of historical significance in American politics, being a very important toss-up state. I believe it's said that no Republican has won the White House in modern times without winning the state of Ohio. So President Trump, if he is to win, will definitely be winning Ohio. The only problem with J.D. Vance is, as I mentioned, he just got elected in 2022. Not a whole lot of experience being there. And he's also a senator. And this election for the Senate is going to be very, very close. There are a lot of vulnerable Democrats up for election in this November election. But the Senate could be a 50-50 tie or maybe even 51-49 majority in either direction. So Vance may actually be better served in the Senate and not putting a seat in a state like Ohio, which has become more of a Republican trending state, but it's certainly a state that Republicans may feel they don't want to risk losing or even being in jeopardy of having to spend money at a very important Senate seat. So J.D. Vance is someone I can certainly see President Trump picking, but I just think the importance of the Senate, I think he passes on it and has Vance stay in the Senate. So that's number 5, J.D. Vance. Coming in at number 4, I have another senator, Marco Rubio from the state of Florida. Marco Rubio is a very interesting name because he's actually been around in the U.S. Senate a lot longer than I think a lot of people may realize. He first got elected back in 2010, And, of course, he's infamously ran against President Trump in 2016, had a very contentious primary with Trump and with Senator Ted Cruz at the time. A lot of insults being thrown around. And I was actually a little bit surprised to hear Marco Rubio's name be in Trump's mix for potential vice presidents for a few reasons. One, the same legal issue as Byron Donalds, which is they're both from the state of Florida. On paper, I believe President Trump would have to switch his residency back to New York or to another state where he holds a residency, like I believe New Jersey or Nevada could work since President Trump has properties there. And then, as I mentioned, another issue is their primary in 2016 where they ran against each other. There was a lot of nasty things said between the two, and I don't think it's more that they haven't gotten over it, but more that there's a lot of ammunition for the Democrats to use against President Trump and Marco Rubio in campaign ads and attack ads and such, that I'm just not sure at the end of the day if it's worth it. That being said, I do think Marco Rubio is someone who has been, I don't want to say a rising star since he's been around for a decent amount of time, but someone that certainly the Republican Party has seen as a rising star at times. And, he's from a very important state in Florida, as I mentioned, very crucial for President Trump and for all Republicans to win. And he's also someone that may be able to, mend the two sides of the Republican Party, the pro-Trump wing and more of the moderate anti-Trump wing. He could be someone that could appeal to both sides and prove to be very, very important for winning this very important election. So Marco Rubio is someone, my gut tells me that it won't be him, but I also would not be surprised if it is him, just due to his rising status in the Republican Party. We move in now to my top three for who I think could be President Trump's vice presidential pick. And coming in at number 3, I have Dr. Ben Carson, a Republican from Michigan, former neurosurgeon, served under President Trump and his administration as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. He ran against President Trump in 2016, but from very early on, they proved to be very friendly, very supportive of each other. Ben Carson has long supported President Trump, never said a bad word about him. He is someone that I think if President Trump is valuing loyalty, which is a trait President Trump has been very vocal about numerous times that he supports and truly values, Ben Carson has been nothing but loyal to President Trump. Similar to a few of the other candidates, he also, being African American, will help with reaching out to the black community and trying to sway voters that may have not historically voted for a Republican. The only cons I could come up with Ben Carson is that it's not the flashiest vice presidential pick. Not many people are going to hear his name as VP and get really excited to go out and vote for him that were not already considering voting for President Trump anyway. So with that said, maybe he may be in a cabinet role, perhaps someone close to President Trump, like Secretary of State or Chief of Staff or something like that. But if Ben Carson were chosen as President Trump's VP, I think it's because President Trump is valuing someone loyal to him that won't go against him, that'll stick with him through everything. And I could see him going that route. I'm just not entirely sure if Ben Carson has the name recognition that will make him that choice. But if President Trump does choose Ben Carson, I will not be surprised one bit. So that is my number 3 choice. Coming in at number 2, I have North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum. Doug Burgum, someone that if you asked a year and a half ago who he was, most people, including most people in the political world and election world, could probably not tell you who he was. Yet he runs for president in 2024, has honestly a pretty impressive debate for the limited amount of time they gave him to speak. Very smart guy, very smart ideas, very sound on policy, and someone that did not go after President Trump and actually spoke very highly of him while still putting out his own message and own policies. And someone I think President Trump actually recognized, and even I believe posted on Truth Social a few times, that he respected Burgum and actually liked him. He was the governor from North Dakota, and as I mentioned, he's also proven his loyalty to President Trump by speaking on behalf of President Trump numerous times during Trump's court situation in New York. Burgum's outside of the courthouse speaking a few times, supporting the president, something that I'm sure President Trump definitely loved to see. He also would be more of a calming, stable choice, someone to, again, like Rubio, maybe mend the fences between the MAGA Republicans of the world and the more establishment, traditional Republicans of the world. He could be someone that can kind of unify both sides and bring over more moderate support. Some cons I was able to come up with Burgum, I couldn't find many aside from North Dakota. It's not really like the flashiest state when it comes to presidential politics. President Trump will win it by at least 20 points. So I don't think it's going to be mattering much on that standpoint. And again, despite running for president, Burgum still does not have the highest name recognition, so he may not be able to excite many new voters, and aside from the ones that have already heard of him. But nonetheless, I think he would just be a very solid choice, someone to stick by President Trump as his VP, and someone I could absolutely see being chosen. With that said, now we come to my number one spot, and this is one I've gone back and forth with a few times between Burgum and this person, but I made the decision, I'm sticking with my gut, and I think Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina is my choice to be President Trump's VP. And my reasoning for this is Scott, senator from South Carolina, has also been a rising star in the Republican Party for a while. In my view, he checks all the boxes as a very good vice president. I have no doubt in my mind that I think if he had to become president, I think he would do a great job. He's spoken with President Trump at multiple of his rallies after suspending his campaign and endorsing Trump. I think while he hasn't had as much time, he's proven his loyalty to President Trump. He can help President Trump with expanding the black vote, as Trump has been very vocal in wanting to do, and the Republican Party has struggled with for a long time. Scott kind of takes a lot of the different positive aspects of many of the previous choices I've mentioned and kind of just bundle them all into one. And I think that's something that could definitely help him and make him a very formidable and solid vice presidential choice. And something I haven't mentioned yet, one of the candidates I could absolutely see, if he wins, running for president in 2028 to succeed President Trump. I'm not sure if Ben Carson or Doug Burgum would run for VP in 2028, and even if they did, I'm not even sure they would win the primary, to be honest. Tim Scott is someone I think could bring the success of the Trump administration if they were to win and run in 2028. However, I do have a few cons for Tim Scott. I was having trouble finding some, but I did come up with a few. He does have a past where he was supported from Mitch McConnell and Nikki Haley, two people in the Republican Party that President Trump has minced words with at times, and so that could be a potential problem, but I haven't heard too much about that coming from Trump or the Trump campaign, but it could be something to keep an eye on if he is not chosen. Another thing is that Trump had him at a lot of his rallies, but he's not been super vocal about him per se when mentioning the VP. He'll ask at rallies who should my VP is, but he hasn't mentioned Scott's name specifically. But I think that could also be a smokescreen by President Trump because only Trump knows who his VP is going to be. He's not announcing it early or anything, so that could mean something. It could mean nothing. Only time will tell on that. But I do think at number one, Tim Scott is my pick to be Trump's VP. And I also came up with a little quick graphic of what I think a hypothetical Trump-Scott campaign banner could look like. Trump-Scott, Make America Great Again 2024. I don't know, I look at it and I can kind of see it being reality. So, Tim Scott is who I have chosen to be President Trump's VP. Who do you have for President Trump's VP? Or do you have a different thought? Do you think it's one of the other people I mentioned on this list? Do you think it's someone I have not mentioned on this list? There's certainly a lot of Republicans in high office in this country that could be Trump's VP that maybe he hasn't even mentioned. Maybe it'll be a surprise pick. Feel free to leave a comment below and tell me what you think. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you'd give it a like and consider hitting the subscribe button to stay up to date on all the future videos I'll be posting in the coming days and weeks. So thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.